So, hi everyone, welcome. My name is Atli Bollason.
My name is Owen Hindley.
And we're going to talk about our adventures with Harpa, with the lights on Harpa. And yeah, why we're doing it, how we did it, and maybe try and see how we can make it better or more interesting or look towards the future a bit. Yeah? Do we feel like doing this?
Yeah, sounds good. I hope you guys, anyone here noticed the lights last night, particularly next to the Sonar pub stage? Yeah? Okay, good. That's
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about why that's there, how it's there.
Yeah. Do you want to be the projector manager?
The projector manager. Hello, we've done that.
So just a little bit, for those of you who don't know what we do, my background is in like culture stuff. And the circus, obviously. I studied literature, so I'm obsessed with like the meaning of things, I guess. But I've had an interest in like digital art and tech stuff over the last few years. So I was very lucky to meet Owen.
Yeah.
Who is a...
So yeah, it's an awful title which gets which I tend to use because it seems the most appropriate, but I kind of hate it. It's creative technologist, which is just means someone doing things with technology in a hopefully interesting and sort of creative way. So with this particular project, I've leaned more towards the sort of technical implementation side of how it works with that sort of thing. But yeah, I ran into this guy Atli. We met.
We were both wearing dresses at the moment we met at a party in Reykjavik.
It's entirely true.
And basically what I said to Owen was, hey, when I figured out he was doing like creative programming stuff and implementation, I said, I've always had this crazy idea. Always is an overstatement, obviously, but for a while I had been thinking about wanting to do a game of Pong using the facade of Harpa as a screen. I was just on Harpa, which is the hill just in front of the building, one night, and I thought, this is essentially just a screen, and there's probably some really nice computer running the screen, which means we could probably do anything with this screen. And I had sort of shopped this idea around to every single programmer that I bumped into, but it wasn't until I met Owen that somebody really took it up, actually.
Yeah, I remember the email. I sent you an email the next day, like, oh yeah, hey, met at the party, like, are you serious? It's like, yeah, I'm serious. Are you serious? Yeah, okay. And then like 3 days later, we had sort of a kind of go-ahead from the management of Harpa and Ólafur Elíasson, who is the architect who actually designed not only the front facade of the building, I'm right in saying, but also the light show that takes place on there normally. So outside of the Sonar Festival, there are these beautiful, sort of quite slow, peaceful ambient light patterns that occur. And yeah, so we were good to go. Yeah. So fast forward a couple of months, because we met in like Easter time, and this happened. We're just going to talk over it.
Yeah,
feel the audio. But this was the result.
Basically, what happened was that you could come to Arnarhól, you could connect your mobile phone to a Wi-Fi network that we'd set up. It would send you into a game, you would get instructions, and it would say, hey, tilt your phone to move the paddle. And that's what happened. On Culture Night in 2014, we launched it. People came down to Harpa, they connected their phones. Actually, for that one night, we had designated phones. And then, once there were 2 people connected, a game would ensue on the screen. It was that simple, really. And then in between games, there was a thing that directed you to go to a certain website where you could get information if you had no idea what was going on. We thought this was a really nice thing to do because, in the same way as, like, for example, in public parks, there's ping pong tables often, or basketball courts, or those concrete chess tables that you see in New York. Basically, we sort of figured this was a similar thing. This is just an action that is available to the public. It's just a digital platform that you can engage with if you feel like it, and if you don't, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we thought of it as this perfect meeting point for like for people to come together. Because when we think about video games, we think about like people sectioned off in their rooms with like empty pizza boxes, never seeing anyone. This is sort of the image that's been conjured over the last decade or so. So we wanted to sort of free also video games from those connotations and make them social again. So you come together and it's sort of like an outdoor arcade. Let's have a jolly good time together, basically. And what we witnessed, when just seeing the strangers. This was nice. So when we were on the Arnarhóll, we were testing it out. People were playing the game, and they would start playing. They would be like, "Hey, oh man, like who am I playing against?" And there would be somebody over in the other corner saying, "Hey, that's me. I'm gonna get you. I got you right there." And these are people that had never met. They didn't know one another, but they were joined in this game, and they had a few minutes of just like friendly competition, and it felt like a nice social thing to do.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah, well, I'll never forget going up there with a couple of friends and literally hearing sort of this stuff going on in the distance and somewhere in the dark. You're like, okay, I'm actually playing against someone over there and they're having like an equally good time as me. And actually, they're really good at this game. Okay, I need to concentrate.
Yeah. So it took on this sort of like digital campfire meaning, where let's come together here and enjoy this. And yeah, exactly. So it was simple, it was immediate, competitive, and although it was anonymous, it brought people together.
Exactly.
And ultimately, it was quite successful. And we thought it was really important to do this on Harpa, because Harpa isn't just any other building. As you've seen, it's the architecture is crazy, the scale is way crazier than in the buildings around. And just for those of you who don't know anything about it, it's just that the building was planned like during the economic boom here before 2008, and it was going to be like a World Trade Center and a hotel, and it was all going to be funded by this big bank, and the CEO of the bank was going to have an apartment at the top here, and there was going to be a first-rate hotel. But then the crash happened, and all the financing fell through, and there was actually discussion about leaving the building unfinished as this monument to Icelandic arrogance and stupidity. But luckily, we didn't go that route. But what happened is that the city of Reykjavik partnered up with the government, and this building is fully public. It's 54% owned by the government and 46% by the city, which means in turn that it's our building. It's the building of the people of Iceland and Reykjavik. So I think it really matters when we think of projects like this to contextualize them. And this is just not any headquarter building. This is our building, and by transforming it in this way and allowing people to interact with it, you're sort of giving it back to them. Because it stands there, it's like monolithic, it's sort of alienating. It represents something way bigger than you, but then suddenly you can just play a little game with it, and then you're part and parcel of it, and you actually feel like you own a little bit of it. And I think also just by having something as simple as Pong, you take the building off a pedestal. It starts being this monument to like arrogance past, but also perseverance. We actually came through and finished the building, and it's a beautiful building. It's one of the greatest buildings around. But also, it's like we have the opera here, we have the Icelandic Symphony Orchestra. It's a bloated building. The meaning is bloated, so it's nice to bring it down, make it more just like face to face, and basically just fuck around with it. Yeah. Regarding just to give you a sense of what you can do. Are there some tech people here? Yes, I see some tech people here.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about how we did this?
I wasn't sure whether to skip to this side. How does it work? It works like that. But in short, there's a lot of Node.js and WebSockets and DMX going on. We can, if you're really interested in how it works, two things. One, there's a GitHub repository which you can check out. So all the code for everything we've done on this building is open source, which is something that we thought from the beginning was very important, which means like literally everything we do here is going to live out in the public sphere for people to use, reuse, take a look at it, think actually I can do something with this. I get this running on my own computer, which means I can get it running on Harpa, basically. I'll show the repository in a second, but also, yeah, if you really want to know the ins and outs of how it works, come and find me afterwards, and I will talk to you endlessly about how it goes together.
Which leads us to like, because Pong was a success. I mean, it was ran for one night, then for 10 days, and then we were eager, and Harpa, the people that manage Harpa, were eager to do more stuff. And at this point, we were the only people who had played with it, and we had some more ideas that we wanted to get out of our system. And the next thing that we took on was exactly a year ago. It was during Sonar 2015. And what we did was basically we did we had the Pong game playing again.
Yeah. We ended up playing. We had Pong, and then we thought, okay, how do we develop this further? Let's create some screensavers. We started calling them screensavers, which completely belittled what they eventually became. Screen in between games of Pong, because we thought, everyone would be playing Pong the entire time during this festival, and so these screensavers would just be short little things. It turned out there was a blizzard, so no one wanted to stand outside in the cold and play Pong, which we should have realised. So what actually happened is the visualizers became the star of our show, and the thing, actually, this is really, really something. And then we were actually inside the building, up next to where the Sonar pub stage is, which is the sort of open air stage that is underneath the lights, and realised that the effect of the lights when you're standing underneath them is really significant. We're giving this stage like the biggest lighting rig in ever, basically. So that's what we realised at that time on the first night of that Sonar in 2015, and then realised, okay, we need to really sort of push these. And people are coming into the festival. It's obvious that the building is alive. It's bouncing, and because these screensavers, they are audio reactive. They're taking a sound feed from the stages at Sonar and visualizing that energy, that movement on the facade. And they're busy, they're noisy, they're moving all the time, which is in complete contrast to how the building is ordinarily with these more sort of slow patterns. So this has been the second year we do it now. But after February, but the first time we did it was in February 2015. We have a video, but my laptop is about to die, and it probably won't survive it. But we have some GIFs of the animations later on. But yeah, this is the basic flow. You had Skrillex playing last year. It's great. Going through some audio analysis, again, more technical stuff. It's coming out powering these visualizers, and one thing we also did, which I think speaks into this idea of openness and collaboration around the whole thing. The code is open source, everything we're doing is open. We involved a lot of people, just reached out to people that we both knew, programmers, artists, and this year actually motion graphics people and designers, to say, hey, we have this canvas, these are the limitations. It's a very low number of pixels. It's 77 pixels by 13, which considering you're normally dealing with like 1080 by 720 minimum, or you need on a phone with Retina, it's more than that now. It's a real challenge, but you have full depth of colour, and you have movement and motion, and the fact that this building is enormous. So we had this is a short. This is a list of. I hope I haven't missed anyone off. Of everyone who's contributed directly to the visuals so far, and each one of these people has contributed maybe sort of 4 or 5 individual pieces. So we have now a massive library of artwork, basically, that is being created specifically for this canvas. And this very helpful. You are amazing. It's. Did I get a different adapter? This is the old one. Sorry, there's one in my bag over there.
What was really nice about doing these visualizers So basically, like making the music come to life was we created an interface between the outside and the inside of the building. So we could mediate some of just the power and the energy from inside to those who aren't attending the festival. And I think for the people who live in Reykjavik, there's a definite difference between the more dreamy visuals that are normally going on, and then as soon as Sonar hits, the lights are way more like rhythmic. You have larger areas of color. You have better defined shapes, and I think this is also in working with these visualizers. This is stuff we've figured out works well. You know, large, like well-defined shapes, like very simple shapes, like stripes, stuff that travels across the building, and like Owen mentioned, we weren't really thinking of the inside when we worked on this for the first time. So it was only once the festival began and we were inside, we were dancing, we were like, holy shit, this looks way cooler than we ever would have imagined from in here. So this year actually we took a bit of care to sort of think a little bit more about what's going on from the inside.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are just some animated GIFs of. The bottom one is actually obviously film footage. The top ones are from the visualizer software that we gave the contributors in order to try out their work before they send it to us and try in the building. Because not everyone can make it to Iceland, sadly, for the festival. So in the end, but people were at least able to see how it behaves on this, actually kind of interestingly shaped screen. So this is just a couple of examples of what happened, but you can also, this is brilliant. And we felt people get really, really creative with like this. Thank you so much, that's brilliant. We got that. Yes! Right, okay. People get really, really creative with this really limited canvas. And a limited set of tools, because we're writing stuff in, again, getting technique, we're writing stuff in JavaScript, and which means you can't do sort of real-time 3D graphics unless you code it yourself. We couldn't at that time use video, although we now can. But people responded with like an insane variety of approaches to this challenge that all look fantastic. So that's.
So sort of learning from what we did then, learning from that approach, from opening it up to a bunch of developers, a bunch of designers, we toyed with this idea, and I should actually, I don't know if he's here, but I should credit my friend Alexander Roberts, who's an Englishman who lives here. He was a big fan of what we had done with the festival and really encouraged us to open it up even more. Which we ended up doing. So there was a competition held. We originally planned to hold it as early as last fall, but it was pushed back for different reasons. But so basically it was an open call for ideas about stuff to do on the facade. And we weren't necessarily reaching out to designers or tech people, although obviously a lot of the ideas came from there. But even, if any kid would hand in like a drawing in felt markers, it was considered. And we just asked the people of Reykjavik and everyone, it was an international competition. We have this building, it's equipped with EMX, which is just a way of like making the lights doing anything. What would you like it to do?
And combined with a Wi-Fi network as well that we set up for Pong, so you have the controller in the palm of your hands that can be used anywhere within sight of Harpa, or not actually.
Exactly. So we also we encourage people to have it interactive, not just come up with cool graphics, but to do something that reacts to the to the people who are engaging with the building, for something playful. And I guess we got exactly what we wanted. Paint splatter was the idea that won. Super simple idea by Halldór and Þórir Hans Baldursson, who are creative programmers. Actually we have a screenshot, right? Yeah. So basically what it was just a website running on paint.is. You could log on there, and this greeted you. you were given a limited color palette, and then you could just splatter paint onto the facade. We call it paint because it sort of leaks down as soon as you splattered it. So it's leaking down, and it also reads weather information. So if there's a strong current from the east, for example, it would leak towards the left on this image. From the west, vice versa. If there's a lot of rain, it's going to leak faster. And people went crazy with it. It was the opening, I guess like the opening event of Winter Lights Festival 2016. Winter Lights Festival is a young festival here in Reykjavik that encourages, it's very dark. Hey, let's put some lights out there, and that's totally what was done here. It gave everyone a say in what's happening, and it created patterns that are so radically different from what we normally see. People just went crazy. People were having fun with trying to cover it. We actually had to implement a little bit of spam sort of protection, so you couldn't just cover it all. If you were going really wild, you had to wait for a bit. But it was just a way for the people of Reykjavik to leave their mark. Sort of just like tagging, saying I was here. And what actually happened, which was fun, and we didn't touch it, was that people also started hacking the software. I was driving down Hverfisgata, and I looked on the building, and it has these diagonal red stripes, and I was like, there's no red in the palette, and there's definitely no way of putting stripes in there. So I called up Halldór, who was the developer, and he was like, what the fuck is going on? And he figured out some guy that at some point had taught him programming, I guess.
It was his former tutor.
Yeah.
Because he left his name.
Yeah.
I think that was the dead giveaway.
Yeah. So later that night I was walking home and it said, Pat. But it was great, and we didn't actually want to close him off. I mean, in the end, we wouldn't want him either to risk the project, but we were like, this is cool. This is actually taking the paint even further. This is people painting with code. So we were really, really happy about that. Conceptually, it actually helped us a lot.
And from my point of view, from a code point of view, in terms of they built on the work that we had already done, that was out open source. And the great thing is that I wasn't actually in the country for it. I was at home, but my involvement from the sort of technical side of it was actually fairly minimal, which is great, because it meant that they had taken the work that we'd already done. We put it up there. I didn't need to send them anything. They just taken it. It's like, yeah, okay, we got it running. Okay, how does this work? Yeah, okay, fine. And they just ran with it. So it means that if they can do it, someone else can, which means it's out there, it's in the wild, and it doesn't need to be constrained to the two of us or anyone else on this project. That was a really, so for me personally, that was super exciting. It's like, yeah, okay, they've done it.
What are we going to talk about next?
What are we going to talk about next?
It is great that people can interact with a building like this because, and all around the world, especially public buildings tend to be way too big. They're often very monolithic, and they represent something that's way bigger than you. It's a system that you own, but it's a system that you feel repelled by. But by doing stuff like this, you can create true interaction. And I mean, just like today, there's simple things like Pong and paint spatter, but just thinking out loud, there's so much data going on, and there's a lot of artists working with data now. This building could read a bunch of data, it could pulsate to the beats of the heart of whoever's walking by with an Apple Watch.
Or should I tell you what the weather's going to be tomorrow? Anything.
It could, it's completely reactive and dynamic. And this is not how we think about buildings, usually. We think of they're built, they look like this, they deteriorate, they're fixed, they deteriorate, they're fixed. But this is the landscape of the city, and this is this should be as interesting and as fun as possible. Yeah, we can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess on that subject, we were sort of thinking about, okay, you know, what are the sort of most common uses for buildings that this is, and what is it missing? I mean, we pulled together some nice examples. Obviously, like advertising is a big one. That a lot of buildings just get turned into glorified billboards, and that is absolutely one thing that
We don't want to do.
we do not want this to happen on Harpa. You know, there are of course buildings out there that have this that have an LED facade for a start, which so it gets to dance at night. This is in Barcelona, and I have temporarily forgotten the name of it. Reactify, is that right? Yeah. Actually, if anyone has any contacts with this building, we'd be really interested to
Fuck with it.
fuck with it. Basically. Yes. But this is, as far as I know, this building has had a fairly one-way relationship with the city. I'm very willing to be proved wrong. This one is interesting. This one is the Reuters building in Canary Wharf in London. This has it's a fairly standard office building, but it has this ticker of a news feed. At the moment it's showing stock prices, but it does actually show you headlines normally, which comes around. And I feel like this is sort of heading in the direction of what we're talking about, where the building is actually it's of use to you. You don't work for Reuters, you don't use it as an office space, but it is of use to you. It's kind of acting as a news billboard.
There was a great, I mean, Owen mentioned this funny thing of what if we had this on the House of Commons, you know? What if you could just pass the parliamentary building and you would get details about what's going on. Again,
now debating, like...
Yeah. Again, creating this interface between outside and inside, and especially for public buildings, making it more transparent, just showing people what's happening inside.
And of course, we're not the first people to do interactive building, or even to do Pong on a building. This is a building in the States somewhere, where I think they had to rig these lights themselves. There was another example later on where they used the office lights. So yeah, this is being done, but it seems to happen in sort of isolation and sort of relatively rarely. So this one is in Berlin. This is by a group called Chaos Computer Club, and if you haven't heard of them, I suggest you research them, because it feels like anything that's happening in digital art right now, they already did it 20 years ago, using with a fraction of the technology and the computer power that we have available today. But here they've had to build the office lights in the building. It's showing a heart right now, but they were also able to play a variety of computer games on this building using the office lights. So there's some great examples of this sort of happening already, and we think there should be more of it. This is another nice example. This is in Stockholm, it's in Telefonplan. You can, this is a nice simple one, you can you can call up this building. You used to be able to call up this building and just using the numbers on your phone, change the colour of the tower. So, I really want it to be pink today, or I want it to be blue, and it can become blue. And yeah.
I guess we sort of almost mentioned this already, but...
We have.
Yeah, did we?
Because I guess what we're proposing with the gaming aspect of it, and how Harpa acts as a gaming canvas, in this particular instance as a gaming thing, we'd like to draw a line between that and like a public chessboard. This is I think this is taken in Brooklyn somewhere, like where you just get chessboards out on the street. This services a particular set of the population, people that are into chess. This serves another section of the population, people who are into basketball. It brings them out, it brings them into the city, it gets them to interact with the place in which they live, and is provided by the city. It's just like, yeah, come, play, be part of it, this is for you. And what Pong felt like is another point along that line of saying, hey, this is your building, come and play. And I mean, I live in London. There is I have this sort of English perspective of when anything like that happens, everyone's immediately sort of like, oh, what about the vandalism? What about the the prospect of abuse. What we have now that we didn't have when this has been thought about in the 90s, for example, is that you have the controller right here, and everyone is on 4G. You know, and the screen can be placed somewhere that if anyone does want to mess with it, they need to mess with it in sophisticated ways, like writing "pat" on the front of it. So then now we have these incredibly sophisticated game controllers in our pockets with us constantly. There's a lot more opportunities out there for implementing these public gaming spaces, like big and small, which we think would be, I think, would be really nice to see, and there should be more often.
Yeah, definitely. We see this as a social undertaking, and what we definitely do not want to advocate is this sort of dystopian, like Times Square, Tokyo, Blade Runner view of how the future could look like, but much rather this future where you actively engage with your environment and are informed by it, and it's vice versa by you. And this is not really a new idea. Already in the 50s, there were guys in Paris, the Situationists, led by Guy Debord. They were coining this term of psychogeography, which basically just has to do with a person's relation to the city he or she lives in. And they set about doing these walks around the city, that they call the Rive. And basically, they would then write about their walks, and they would note how, just depending on, of course, the time of day, but also the color of the lights or the other people on the streets, how the journey through the city would feel completely different. And now, with buildings that can react and change and be dynamic in this way, we can constantly modulate the city and constantly thus create new experience for those who are walking through the city.
It's, I think they also write, I think it's them that also have this writing about this this sort of perceived feeling of the city being increasingly hostile to pedestrians. I mean, I don't know if you ever spent any time in the States, but certain United States cities certainly feel like they are hostile to pedestrians, and some cities in, say, cities in Europe, I think, do much better, where it's, this is a city for pedestrians. And I think this sort of activity of transforming buildings in that way is an element in redressing that balance of how the city treats you as a pedestrian, because last time I checked, it's quite hard to play a video game whilst in your car, like driving towards a building.
And just to I mean, this was 50 or 60 years ago that they were thinking of this, but I think the writing really reflects this. I just want to read a really, really quick quote just to understand. They were thinking of these things because the technological advances were so fast then. They're even faster now, and we're inching even closer towards a true situationist future. Even Chechglov, which is a pseudonym, I don't know his real name, he wrote, "The latest technological developments would make possible the individual's unbroken contact with cosmic reality while eliminating its disagreeable aspects. Stars and rain can be seen through glass ceilings. The mobile house turns with the sun, its sliding walls enable vegetation to invade life. Mounted on tracks, it can go down to the sea in the morning and return to the forest in the evening." Of course, this is a very utopian view of it, but I think we should definitely look towards a future where buildings are fully reactive.
Obligatory beneath the beach, beneath the streets, the beach.
Yeah, basically, that's what we said. Did we hop over the actual light organ? Is that?
We did hop over the actual light organ.
Yeah.
Okay, so we hop back to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Exactly. So moving on, I guess our latest installment in this story of enabling people to play with the building is, on the one hand, the visualizers that you already saw last night, which will be happening tonight and tomorrow, and what we've termed the light organ, which is basically just a big controller that will be mounted on the fourth floor balcony. It's an instrument. It adheres to musical logic, and you can go up there and you can play with it, and the facade will react in real time. You can think of it as playing with colors. It's somewhere in between music and painting. Harmony, for example, the software reads the harmonies that you're playing and will give you color feedback depending on the harmonies you're playing. The luminescence will be reacting to how strongly you're playing. The position of the light blobs are related to the pitch that you choose. And ultimately this would enable you to create compositions, basically, for the facade. And this is what earlier thinkers of light organs or color organs were sort of obsessed with. This is not a new idea. This goes back to the 18th century. Because, you know, synesthesia, what would you call it?
The crossing of the senses,
yeah.
Changing it.
It's this mental, I guess it is actually classified as a mental disorder, but those who have it are way cooler than the rest of us. It's when your senses cross. So, and it's especially common for musicians to sort of think of harmony and color or certain pitches as colors. And there's even certain words could trigger certain smells or stuff like this. So basically this is sort of based on this idea of linking music and color. It goes way back. And it was quite popular in the modernist era. A lot of people trying to write symphonies that for orchestras, but also for color. And then there were some people who created machines that would just refract light and color it. And especially a guy called Thomas Wilfred, who made a machine called the Cladolux in the 1920s. It creates some of the most beautiful, just shapes and color that I've seen. And if anybody see Tree of Life by Terrence Malick, it's intercut with shots of this, just these weird colorful flames that I guess represent God in the film or something. And then again in the psychedelic era, of course, kaleidoscopes, painting with glass colors on overhead projectors and stuff like this, and then creating instruments that would actually replicate that. But it didn't really catch on. But we're hoping this time it's gonna be a big deal. So it's open actually from until 9 o'clock tonight and tomorrow. But from Sunday night and until Wednesday, you can go all night if you're still here. And then you don't need a pass. So anyone you know who might have fun with that, you can do that.
So, 2 minutes. Okay, all right. So, well, I mean that's kind of handy because I think we just wanted to wrap up.
Yeah.
I think, by saying, it is the public canvas. It is the canvas of the city of Reykjavik, and we want to be open with it. So one gesture of that is the fact that everything is open source. So there is the repo. All the code that's running everything out there is on that repository. I apologise for the code quality because it probably was done at 1 o'clock in the morning, the night before the opening of the festival. But it's there, and you can play with it, download it, try it, and then get in touch.
And there's other buildings with technological capabilities, and we should really all go out and try and shape the city. So we should reclaim it, basically. So if anybody has questions or comments, I guess we have a couple minutes for that, but we can also just hang around and you can approach us. All right. Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned there are only 700 pixels, but in the paint splatter project they only have 7 colors. Is the facade also color limited?
No, not
Full
at all.
RGB.
It's full RGB. That was actually an aesthetic limitation. The utopian dream has its limitations.
Yeah. Actually, as I was advisor to the project, and I said, this is not democratic. This is counter-concept, boys. So we added more colors, but it was purely for aesthetical purposes to have a limited palette.
Could you talk more about the audio capturing that makes the audio visuals?
Yep. So there is. It's taken. This year it's taken a live feed from Sonar Pub Stage. That goes down into the basement where we have a machine that's running the whole show. It's just a laptop with an audio interface, and we're actually using that part of it. I think should be on the repository. It's written by a guy called Ragnar Halkason, it's written in a language called Pure Data. And that is analysing the audio, gets a tempo, pulse, and the majority of the visualizers, they're taking this tempo pulse to move on the beat, so it is precisely synchronized to the pulse of whatever's being played. We also have volume and frequency information that we can do things with as we wish, but the main thing is getting that tempo pulse going on.
So when you were asking people to program visuals for this audio, was it there? Were you just giving them like an amplitude, or it was their job to do all of their kind of siphoning off of frequencies and tempos, or did you guys supply them with the pure data info?
We created a browser based. A lot of this stuff is browser based. So it's running the test software to actually look at it. It's all it's running in a web browser, and we created a little browser template basically that was using a web canvas, so a normal HTML5 canvas, and we simulated all of the audio feeds that would be coming in. There is an audio file playing in there that gets the real volume data out of it, but I didn't have time to write a JavaScript beat detection thing, so it just plays sort of tap tempo that will be exactly the same as what they will get when we take their code out of that visualizer and stick it in our system. So it's meant to be a one-to-one process. They have something that they can run at home on their machines. They're getting audio. They're getting all the same impulses from that they would do when it's running here with the live DJ. And then they can change it, try it with a bunch of different tracks if they want to, and then we just take that and put it in our system, and in theory, it all just matches up.
So you were asking the creatives to program HTML?
In JavaScript, yeah.
In JavaScript?
Yeah.
What type of images are possible on Harpa? What type of shapes? Is it only general shapes, or can you get more specific, like a face?
I mean, the resolution is low. It's only 77 by 13 pixels. So basically, anything you can do that way. But bearing in mind, of course, that the pixels here are tubes, so they're elongated.
They're also not straight. They're also a funny angle.
Little angle. But I'm actually amazed by how you can tell what's going on. And I think, for example, a lot of the stuff that Ólafur Elíasson submits, because that's going on usually, is just video that's translated. It's just a video reader. So, when you see these balls floating, that's just like him putting a balloon through a room or something like that. There's one, we're actually not, I thought that we had some problems with it, but for example, there was one that was submitted this year that was like a smiley face, which was totally visible.
Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, anything that you can do on such a small canvas, you can show.
It is just a screen. What we've turned it into is a screen, and therefore giving people this kind of blank canvas to work from.
Cool. Well, thanks for making it out today, and have fun tonight. And play the organ and have fun. Yeah.